Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over the Woodpeckers clamping squares. It's kind of funny, I did a Woodpeckers video a couple days ago and I went over all my favorite tools and I completely skipped over these gems. I've got 8 of them, 4 pair, and I use these things all the time when I'm building, bookcases, cabinet carcasses, drawers, basically anything with a right angle. These things come into play, and I think it's funny, I've just completely skipped over these things because they're on a wall separately from all my other woodpecker stuff. But anyway, so for you guys that don't know anything about woodpeckers, woodpeckers basically takes your standard everyday woodworking layout measurement tools and beefs them up, makes them accurate to within 1/1000th of an inch over the entire length of however long their instrument is. So if it's 12 inches, they guarantee it's within 1/1000th of an inch over 12 inches. Same for 18, same for 24 inches, and same for 90 degrees. So these clamping squares, we've all used these plastic ones that, you've got to put them in a corner and use some F-style clamps, which it gets kind of bulky, and I hated using these things. And they're plastic. I mean, yeah, they're probably 90 degrees or close to it, but they're still plastic, and there's still room for air in these things because they're just a molded plastic, and I don't think the quality control on these things are anywhere near what the tolerances that Woodpeckers complies to. So these clamping squares, here's a mock-up of a square box that I had laying around, and I was just going to show you kind of a depiction of how you can use these things. So you get the clamping square itself. The clamps are an added purchase. You don't have to use them. You can use regular clamps, but really, if you're going to spend the money on these clamps, spend the money on these 90 degrees, buy these clamps, because they have holes milled out in these things that these clamps fit into perfectly, and there is no play. I mean, it just fits in there like an absolute glove. There is no wiggle room whatsoever once you put these clamps in these holes. So when you're building your carcass, or when you're building, again, anything with 90 degrees, these things are incredible. For one, how accurate they are. You're going to get 90 degrees if you use these things. But the applications are really endless. So like you saw how I originally had it, you can put them on the outside, you can clamp them down, and these things go up to, I've used them on 1.5 inch. These clamps can spin out to accommodate an 1.5 inch piece of furniture. So you pick your hole that you want. I typically like to use the last hole because that's the best reference. If you use the 2 furthest holes, that's going to give you the most accurate 90 degree. So you can just stick it here in this hole. That sounds funny. And get your one edge referenced up against your workpiece. Tighten it down, clamp it down good. So now all you have to do is clamp this, your second clamp, stick it in one of the holes. I gotta quit saying that. And tighten it down. So you know that this corner is going to be 90 degrees. Okay. And again, you can use this style. I use this for a long time. But just look at the size difference. I mean, these things are bulky. I don't know exactly how accurate they are, but then you have to get a clamp. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but then you got to clamp this thing up. And it just you got clamps everywhere. And it just kind of becomes a little, just a little bulky. Whatever you're building, you got this giant square, you got clamps. I don't like it. So anyway, this is basically it. I mean, it's just a 90 degree clamp. You can clamp inside like this. I can see over here. You can scoot around. So you can square up the inside of the corner. Tighten that down. It's hard for me to see here, guys, but So you got multiple clamping options with these thumb screw clamps for these 90 degrees. One thing that I found really useful, and there's probably a better way to do this, but I found these clamps work great for it, is when I'm doing like mid-panel shelving that I don't have a reference line. So I'll show you guys what I mean. But if I'm putting in a shelf mid-panel of a cabinet carcass, I can draw a line under each side of the cabinet where I want the bottom of that shelf to sit, and then I can clamp these squares. This box is not a great depiction because I don't have much height to work with, but let's just take, for example, if I want to put a shelf right here, all I have to do is I clamp a square here, and I'll clamp a square in the back, and this basically gives me a third hand to lay my shelf, and I know it's going to sit perfectly perpendicular, so I can come around here, and with these arms are basically going to hold up my shelf for me, so I can scoot this shelf in and lay it flat. Okay, so now I know that this shelf is perfectly perpendicular to the side of the carcass. And then I take my handy, if I need to, say if this is just going to be shop furniture, I don't care. So I will sometimes screw from the outside of the carcass into the shelf. If it's just a cheap shop furniture, it doesn't matter. So I'll take my saddle T-square that I use all the time, and I will line up this edge of the saddle T on the top of that shelf, and I can wrap the line around this whole carcass, and I know on this line now that is the top of my shelf inside, and I can do the same for the bottom of the shelf. I can line up that saddle on the bottom of the shelf, make my mark. So when I turn this thing around, I know that this is the top of my shelf, this is the bottom of my shelf, and I can go mark everywhere I want to drill for a hole. You guys can see that. So that's where this saddle T-square comes in handy all the time, as I use this a lot to reference the outside of where my shelves lie. I think it's great. I love this thing. But, so there's not much to it other than the fact to tell you guys that these are, amazing quality tools that Woodpeckers puts out. These 6-inch, actually they're 6 3/4. So you've got 6 3/4 inches on both sides. They're 3/4 of an inch thick. They're milled from a single block of billet aluminum. They're heavy. These things are not lightweight, and they are not moving once you get these things clamped. So the possibilities are endless on this thing, and when I'm building drawer boxes, they come in real handy. And it's the same premise as this. Once you get your drawer box components cut out, lay them out, and let's just pretend that this is a drawer. All you do is you can clamp literally all 4 corners of your box and then mechanically fasten however you're going to mechanically fasten, or if you're going to use dominoes or dowels or dovetails, whatever you're going to use. In my case, for like shop furniture, I typically just nail them. I think that's fine for most shop furniture, because then when you put the floor on, it's going to kind of hold everything together. But a lot of times when I'm just building drawers, this is how I use these clamping squares, and you can put them on every corner if you want. So then you literally know that every single corner that you've got is squared, and I didn't get enough thumb clamps to get out, but you can see here I've got 3 perfectly 90-degree corners now. And this gives you the room Now that you don't have clamps, coming out all sides, you have the room now to get to the edges and either, nail the edges, screw the corners together if you're using that type of fastener. Dovetails are a little bit different, but it'll still help you get the 90-degree. But anyway, I was kind of kicking myself for not showcasing these 90-degree scoring clamps that I have from Woodpeckers. They're great. Here's another close-up. So, and you can get, Woodpeckers sells a clamping, they call it a racket system, that allows you to hang these up on the wall and keep these thumb screw clamps, organized with these actual clamps. It's just a great little setup, and I use them all the time. And I can't say enough good things about them. And with these, along with my saddle T-square, it literally makes putting carcasses together a breeze, depending on how you're building them. Again, if you're doing mid-panel joinery that you're just affixing with screws from the outside, this little T-square is amazing because you can determine exactly where on the outside of your carcass where your shelf is at. And to me, it's just easier. If I've got my top and my bottom line, I can go mark exactly where I know my screw's going to go in. I don't have to worry about it coming out the top of the shelf, the bottom of the shelf, whatever. So anyway, guys, that's just a really quick overview of these clamping squares, how I use them a lot. And I suggest you give them a try. You can always buy these. I have them. But I just found these Woodpeckers to be of just absolute superb quality and fit and finish. Accuracy, you just can't beat them. So anyway, guys, that is the Woodpeckers 6 3/4 inch clamping squares. Talk to you soon.